Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the regulatory section of the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee. Please remind you that when speaking into your microphone, you need to wait until you see yourself on the screen so the live feed can pick up your comments. If you speak before your image is projected, those listening on the live feed will not hear anything you say. This is obviously particularly important in the case of a vote being required. Audio recording is being used to assist in preparing the formal minutes. Therefore, anyone participating in the meeting consents to it being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. So agenda item 1 is apologies. I have 2 apologies. Councillor Lavery, Vice Chair, will be missing the first part of the meeting, but will hopefully be here this afternoon. And Councillor Savage, do you have any from the floor? Councillor O'Dowd?
Yeah. Sorry, it was just to say Councillor Savage, but he'd already got in.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Councillor O'Dowd. Agenda item 2 is declaration of interest. Just take them as we go, members. And then we'll move on to agenda item 3. As report from Director of Regulatory Services and Facilities and Assets. And it's one item for information. 3.1 is 6-month business plan progress report, and Caroline Leonard, Director of Regulatory Services, Facilities and Assets, is to present this item. It's Tom. Sorry, Tom's going to present this one. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Members will be aware that the business plans for 24-25 for all directors were approved at the relevant service committees back in May and June, and it was agreed that 6 months progress reports be brought forward to the relevant service committees. The purpose of this report is to present an update and review of the business plans for both planning and building departments. And members will note that the full appendices or full reports are at appendices 1 and 2. Progress rating has been applied to in terms of the progress against identified targets using the green, red, or amber, and where actions our progress is slightly behind. A rationale or explanation has been provided. Both Damien and I are here to take any questions the members may have on the progress reports. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tom. Alderman Wilson, you have a question?
Yeah, it's maybe one Helen could answer. It's just on the development plan. I suppose the main issue that people raise with me on it, and I suppose the one of most interest to them, is on the settlement limits and development zones, and generally when people can expect to see some activity on that, you know, from a perspective of them being able to be consulted and respond on that particular point. Are we getting closer to that point just in terms of a timeline?
Yes, thank you, Chair. You may recall there was a draft revised LDP timetable that was brought to committee back in July. So we're currently engaging with the Planning Appeals Commission and the Department for Infrastructure as their 2 key stakeholders that feed into the LDP process. I suppose, or whatever, in relation to your query and settlement development limits, that's brought forward at draft local policies plan stage. In advance of that, if there is a need for additional land, there would be a call for sites carried out. At the minute, that's programmed for 2027, but is subject to change. I suppose in relation to the actual publication of the draft plan strategy, currently that's scheduled for Q4 of this business year through to Q2 of the following business year. So suppose in relation to if you are getting queries in relation to settlement development limits, I would recommend that interested parties submit representations at the draft plan strategy stage, but frame submissions at a strategic level. I hope that helps answer the question.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson, content with that? Yeah. Members have no other lights on in relation to that. We'll move on to agenda item 4. And this is agenda item 4.1 is an item for decision as the draft Monaghan County Council Development Plan 2025 to 2031, and Helen Stoops, Principal Planning Officers, present this item as well.
Thank you, Chair. Monaghan County Council wrote to the Council advising that the draft Monaghan County Council Development Plan 2025 to 2031 is in public display from the 5th of September to the 14th of November. The draft development plan provides an overall strategy for the sustainable development of County Monaghan over the plan period. It includes a strategic aim, objectives and policies for development and use of land within County Monaghan. A copy of the draft plan can be found at Appendix 2. Officers have prepared a draft response to the consultation, which primarily focuses on cross-boundary issues of common interest, including environmental designations, transportation links, sustainable tourism and greenways. The response also advises that it is Council's draft response as is going through Council's ratification process, and if any subsequent matters arise as a result of this process, that a further letter will issue in due course. Full details of the draft response can be found at Appendix 3. Chair, this item is for decision and it is recommended that members approve the draft response to Monaghan County Council as outlined in Appendix 3. Thank you, members, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Helen. Is there any questions from board members? Okay, members, this is a decision item. Do you have any proposals on this? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Chair. I propose we accept the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy and Councillor Dowd.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'm happy to second it.
Okay, members, and we have a proposal on the floor. Everyone in agreement with that? Yeah, it's no problem. Thank you, members. Thank you, Helen. We have another 3 information pieces item now. 4.2 planning application validation checklist, and Roisin Hamble is to take this report for us.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise members that on the 3rd of October, the Department for Infrastructure wrote to the Council advising it had made legislation which enables the Council to prepare and publish a validation checklist to address incomplete applications. At present, the bar for submission of a planning application in Northern Ireland is low. Article 3 of the Planning General Permitted Development Order sets out the minimum level of information needed with an application to make it valid. However, there's currently no legal requirement for applicants to provide other essential information, despite many of them being a plan and policy requirement, such as drainage assessment, flood risk assessment, etc. The purpose of the legislation is to enable the Council to specify additional information requirements on submission for applications for full planning permission, outline plan permission and approval of reserved matters, according to the nature, scale and location of the proposed development. The information requirements must be reasonable, proportional and be material to the consideration of the application. Where an application is submitted not in compliance with the validation checklist, the Council may issue a formal notice of non-compliance with the checklist. The applicant will have the ability to appeal the notice of non-compliance to the Planning Appeals Commission. The overall objective of the amendment is to enhance the quality of applications entering the system, to front-load the decision-making process, resulting in better processing times and more efficient consultee responses. In recognition of the limitations of current legislation with regards to submission of applications, the Council introduced a secondary validation checklist in October 2023, the purpose of which was to provide non-mandatory advice to applicants and agents on the information needed to accompany an application at the start of the process. Officers propose to base the draft validation checklist for consultation on the existing secondary validation checklist, which it will review and update. The proposed final validation checklist will be reported back to the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee prior to publication for agreement and adoption and before the new legislation comes into effect. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Roisin. Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, thanks. And it's just a bit of clarity on it. I know in terms of the checklist for likes of replacement dwelling and the bot surveys, is that going to be part of it, that people, you know, if their application is a replacement, that I know they can only be carried out at certain times of the year, so you could get an application in just after that period has passed, and then it's delaying it then into the next year before that survey can be carried out. And will that be part of the checklist to make people aware? It'll save them time and the council time as well, with applications sort of sitting for longer than they need to, waiting on that process.
Thank you. Yes, as you know, at the moment, we have the secondary validation checklist, which is non-mandatory. And at the moment, we would advise applicants on submission of an application of any additional information that may be required. Now, they're not required to submit it at the moment, this moment in time, but we give them the option of waiting until they have the information so they can front load the application, such as a biodiversity checklist, which would identify then the need for any further surveys, such as a bat survey. So obviously, we'll base the draft validation checklist on our current checklist, so it's likely something like that would be built in. But as I say, we haven't finalised the new checklist yet. We'll present that to members, but it is likely, yes, that something like that will be built into the new checklist.
Thank you. Roisin, Alderman Wilson, content. Members, no other lights on for that one. Thank you, Roisin, for the report. Members going to take 4.3 and 4.4 together. Damien Mulligan, Head of Planning, is to present both these items. They're information items only. So,
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Members, you'll see from this report that we issued 126 decisions over the course of 1st of October to 31st of October. We received 80 applications over the same period, and you'll note that our live caseload is sitting at 702 applications, which is a significant reduction from where we were at the beginning of the business year. The number of applications has dropped from 980 to 702. So that more manageable caseload will obviously assist us moving forward in terms of processing time. So in many ways, it's welcome news. Unfortunately, on the other side of the coin, I suppose we have to look at the potential impact on planning income. But we'll obviously monitor as well as we go forward the number of applications coming in. We're not sure at this stage if it's just a blip or whether it's something that's going to be a continuing trend. So we'll keep a close eye on that. But that's the current number is 702. Number of call-ins received over that period of time was 5, bringing the total year to date to 21. I'll maybe take you through then, members. These are both for information, so I'll take you through the statistical bulletin, which was produced for Q1 of this year. So the report before you relates to that bulletin, and it was published by the Department for Infrastructure for Q1 of the current business year, and provides an overview of planning activity across all planning authorities, not just councils, but includes DFI, and gives information on processing times and performance. And I'm pleased to report that during Q1, we were the best performing council for processing major applications, third best for processing planning enforcement cases. And while missing the target for local applications, it does show that we're continuing to show tremendous improvement in that area of work. I'm happy to take any questions or queries, Chair. Thank you.
thank you, Damien. Any questions in relation to that, members? No lights on. Members, move on to agenda item 5.1. It's an item for information. It's dual language street naming requests, and Tom Lavery, Head of Building Control, is the presenters for the report. You, Tom.
Thank you, Chair. Members will note from the report that in June 2024, the Council received 13 applications for dual language street signage, namely Irish, in respect to various streets across the borough. As per the Council's adopted street naming number and policy, the application process comprises of 2 stages, as set out in the body of the report. These applications are currently at stage 1 in the application process. The applications were accompanied by signed petitions purported to represent occupiers of premises in the streets for which the applications have been made. There were a number of issues that required further clarification, and officers contacted the applicant directly to seek the clarity required. In the subsequent weeks, officers received further information from the applicant relating to the various applications. It was noted that one of the applications, the reference 062403, was for an unofficial address, which was for a terrace section of a street. The applicant has subsequently been advised that council cannot accept this particular application as it does not relate to an authorised street name. With regards to the other 12 applications, as provided under the policy, these petitions required verification against the electoral register. And following verification of the names on the 12 petitions, I can confirm the following. One of the 12 applications has not met the requisite threshold under stage 1 of the policy, i.e. the petition represents less than 1/3 of the occupiers of the premises on the street which the application is made. Therefore, this application has not met the criteria as set out in the policy, where it will be considered by council. The applicant has been notified accordingly of that. 11 of the 12 applications have met the requested threshold under the policy, i.e. they do represent not less than 1/3 of all the occupiers' premises on the street. Therefore, in accordance with council policy, these 11 applications are valid and can proceed to stage 2 of the application process. This is where council will undertake to survey the views of all the appropriate residents on the various streets in accordance with council policy. The 11 applications cover a wide range of street sizes from 8 to 188 houses, all requiring to be surveyed. Given the resource required to undertake the surveys, an analysis of the results and preparation of subsequent reports, etc., it would be officers' intention that these surveys should be carried out in a phased and manageable manner over several months, i.e. a maximum of 3 surveys per calendar month. Thank you, Chair. This report's for information, but I'm happy to take any questions members may have.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Councillor Flaherty.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Chair. And I hope I'm not asking the wrong question here, but I'm relatively new to committee, so give me a bit of leeway here, if you can. Can you just outline to me how this is the only bit I'm maybe not understanding, and maybe this is my misunderstanding, but I don't understand how one applicant can make 13 applications. Now, maybe I've missed this and you'll explain this to me very simply. I understand the 2 stages, absolutely, that it has to be validated and verified and your canvas done out, which is going to take you ages by the looks of this. What do you say, 3 every month or something? But can you just clarify the process to me, how you accept an application? Because I have to say, my understanding, and it could be my mistake, was that they at least had to be a resident. I would always have preferred that owned the house or owned the property. I don't think that's the case. But I thought at least they would have been resident. But if somebody can apply for 13 all at the one time, I just want that cleared up for me. If you need to after the meeting, that'll be fine. But that's just something I just couldn't get my head around.
Thank you, Councillor. Just to clarify, the policy itself doesn't limit who makes the application. What it does do is it puts an onus on who actually is qualified to be registered as a person of interest, for want of a better word. And it does limit to anybody over the age of 18, and they have to be on the electoral register, and they have to live in that residence on that street. So the policy doesn't cover who makes the application, but it does set out clearly the criteria for those who are eligible to vote.
Councillor Flaherty, are you content with that? You understand, yeah? Okay, members, any other questions on that? Councillor Duffy.
Oh, I just want to thank Tom and the staff for his work in around this and just getting them to that stage 2. It's just, I know there can be a fair bit of work depending on the size of the street, you know, but I just like to thank you for the work in around it.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other question, members? Well, members, move on to agenda item 5.1, which is an update on building control and property certificate application workloads, and Tom will present this one as well.
Thank you, Chair. This report to keep members informed of the workload being undertaken by the department during the first 7 months of this financial year. As noted in Appendix 1, for 7 months, we have received 1,663 building regulation applications, which has a notional construction investment value of just over 122.66 million. We've also carried out just over 9,070 site inspections and undertaken 1,151 plan assessments and issued a total of 1,570 statutory notices. The department has also continued to deliver the council's property certificate function for the conveyancing of properties across the borough. In the last 7 months, we received and administered 2,243 new applications and issued 2,246 certificates to solicitors and agents relating to property sales in the area. Thank you, Chair. This report is for members' information, but I'm happy to take any questions members may have.
Thank you, Tom. Members, any questions? Alderman Wilson?
Yeah, just thanks for that. And it is a good news story. And when you say notional value, does your valuations of that, are they reactive to material prices, right up to date, or is it like a set at a certain period in time, or is that continually reflective of how materials and other products have risen in price? If it is, it just shows the absolute value of the service that we do provide here in building control and planning to our local economy. For when you think of the millions of pounds there, and that's just distributed, I think even locally here, all the companies and providers and tradesmen, it's completely vital to our economy in ABC, and all those plumbing supplies, concrete, masonry, trades. You couldn't begin to appreciate just how vital it is, and then it puts obviously a huge onus on ABC Council to be so swift and active in our departments, to ensure that there isn't undue delay in the processing of all those applications. And it's just thanks to the teams for putting all their efforts into that, because it makes the borough tick to a certain degree. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you for your question, Alderman Wilson. Yes, what we do actually do at a regional level is through all the building control departments across all 11 councils, is we agree, there's the RICS, Royal Institute of Charter Surveyors, publish information right across UK, and they have regional variations of that. And we take the most up to date each year, and we agree through regionally, so that every council is purporting the same figures. And we agree what that is for various types of buildings at so much per square meter. And that's how we calculate what the estimated value is. And say, so the information is fairly accurate. It's correlated with the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. So we're reasonably content that it's as good as we can get and as accurate as we can get. And that's done on a regional level.
You, Tom. Alder Wilson, copy it up. Members, no other questions on that. Thank you, Tom, for the report. Now move on to agenda item 6, correspondence. There's one item of correspondence from NI Water. Is there any questions on that? No. Okay, members. Agenda item 7 is confidential report. Can I seek a proposer and seconder to move the meeting into committee? Proposed by Alan Mulholland and seconded by Councillor O'Dowd. Members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into a confidential session of the Council. This means that we'll be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask ICD officers to please turn off the live feed and confirm with me when the confidential section of this meeting can proceed? Thank you. Just check ICT. Yep, good to go. Okay, members, agenda item 9, any other relevant business? I have none. So it'll be a short recess until the plan application. So we'll meet back here at 4 o'clock. Thank you very much, members. We are live. Thank you. Okay, members, welcome to the planning part of our committee this afternoon. Welcome to the planning section of the hybrid meeting of the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee. Can I ask everyone please mute your microphones at all times unless invited to speak by myself. For those of you who are physically in the council chamber, can I please remind you that when speaking into your microphone, you need to wait until you see yourself on the screen so the live feed can pick up your comments. If you speak before your image is projected, those listening on the live feed or via Zoom will not hear anything you say. This is obviously particularly important in the case of a vote being required. Audio recording is being used to assist in preparing the formal minutes. Therefore, anyone participating in the meeting consents to being recorded and being live streamed on YouTube. Also, during the course of this meeting, questions may be asked by councillors who are members of the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee of Planning Officers, applicants for planning permission, objectors, or those speaking on their behalf. Doing so, councillors endeavour to ascertain the information which they feel is necessary to enable them to determine the application. However, members of the public should note councillors will not reach a conclusion as to whether an application should be approved, refused, or deferred until the debate on the application has concluded. Members, we have 10 items on for decision this evening, and we're going to miss out Appendix 1 at the moment. We're having a bit of difficulties in reaching one of the councillors, so we're just going to move past that and move on to Appendix 3. Hopefully we'll return to that later on this evening. So Appendix 3 is application LA 08 2022 1411/0 or /0 as Kenneth Lundy, and it's up for refusal. Nicola Craney, the Senior Planning Officer, is present the report and PowerPoint presentation. Just bear with me 1 second. Councillor Moutry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've actually called in this application, so I'll excuse myself and taken part. I've requested speaking rights also. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moutry. We'll just give a wee second just so we get all our speakers in place, and then we'll present the report. Just give 1 wee second. Yeah, thank you for bearing with us there. Councillor Moutry is in place. You would be Councillor Moutry is to make representation in support of the application, and Sheila Curtin from 2 Plan NI is also to make a representation in support of the application. At this moment in time, I'm going to hand over to Nicola, who's to present the report and PowerPoint presentation. Over to you, Nicola.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks outline planning permission for the erection of a dwelling and garage adjacent to number 69 Battle Hill Road with access off Drummard Road. The application has been presented to committee as it was called in by Councillor Moutry. A planning report and addendum has issued to members. In terms of the principle of development, the main planning policy is CTY1 and CTY2A of the PPS 21, new dwellings and existing clusters. In this case, officers do not accept that the proposal meets the full requirements of the clustering policy. The policy requires the proposal to comply with 6 criteria. This proposal is considered to fail 3 of these criteria. Officers consider there's a ribbon of development along Battle Hill Road, which comprises more than 4 buildings of at least 3 which are dwellings, forming a linear development adjacent to a crossroads. However, this grouping is not a cluster, which is a visual entity in the landscape, which is a requirement under criteria 2. The site does not have a suitable degree of enclosure and is not bounded on 2 sides by development within a cluster, a requirement of criteria 4. And it cannot be absorbed into a cluster by consolidation and rounding off, and will visually intrude into the open countryside altering the character of the rural area, filling criteria 5 of CTY 2A. In addition to policy CTY 1 and CTY 2A, the policy fails CTY 8, CTY 13 and 14 in that it lacks long established natural boundaries for integration, will lead to the build-up and creation of urban development along Drummond Road, and would impact the character of the rural area. There are no objections raised by the consultees, NI Water, DFI Roads, NIE and NIEA, and there's no third-party representations to the proposal. An addendum report contained a PIC decision submitted by the agent, Appeal 2021 A0141 for dwelling, which was approved under the clustering policy at Vianstown Road in Downpatrick. The addendum clarifies that this is a site-specific decision which is closely aligned to the clustering policy. This application at Battle Hill and Drummond Road is not in any way comparable. I have information on this decision and a number of other PAC decisions in my presentation. The recommendation is to refuse, and 5 reasons for refusal are set out in the planning report. And I'd like to go through the presentation. Next slide, please. So you can see the site is on the junction of the Drummond Road with the Battle Hill Road, and the Clonroot Road actually is just opposite. It's between Portadown and Kilmore. Next slide, please. This is an aerial view of the proposed site. You can see the ribbon of development all along the Battle Hill Road. Next slide, please. This is site location plan of the site. Next slide, please. A concept plan which is submitted by the agent. Next slide, please. This is a photograph then of the site from on Drummond Road, looking towards the site. Next slide, please. This is a photograph to the crossroads, and it's from Clonroot Road from the southeast. Next slide, please. It's a photograph, a view across the road from the Battle Hill Road, then looking towards the site from the east. You can see on the concept drawing and on the location plan, it shows a number of buildings to the side of that number 67, but those buildings have actually all been removed, although they're on the other side of the road, so they wouldn't be considered under clustering policy anyway. Next slide, please. And this is a view then from the southwest, then looking towards the site. You can see again the ribbon of development along this road. Next slide, please. This is just a photograph of the boundaries of 69 and 69A, just adjacent to the properties next to it. Next slide, please. This is just an example from Building on Tradition, just showing that what is accepted as an infill, or sorry, what's accepted as a cluster and what's not accepted as a cluster. And I thought that example, which I've identified with the red arrows, just seemed quite similar in terms of having a building to one side and then just the back garden or whatever of another house to the other side of it. Next slide, please. This is the decision which the agent has submitted. As you can see, there's very much a visual entity at this location. The site was considered under both infill and clustering. It failed one of the criteria, and that criteria was the crossroads, but the commissioner did feel that there did still seem to be a crossroads at this location, but overall still thought that it wasn't a crossroads, but overall felt that it complied with the policy in the round, but it was one reason, one criteria, which had to be addressed in this case. Next slide, please. This is a refusal under clustering, and again, it says about how a ribbon of development isn't a cluster, which I felt was relevant in this case. Next slide, please. This is another planning appeals decision where it shows that the buildings actually have to be immediately on the boundary of the site and not across the road. And next slide, please. This is one which is actually within our area, which it didn't read as a cluster, it read as dispersed settlement really, ribbon development along the road. So I thought it was helpful because it is within our area and it's a recent decision. I think that concludes my presentation. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Nicola, for the report and presentation. Just to remind members, there was an addendum report that had been circulated in relation to this application. Okay, at this moment, I'm going to invite Councillor Ken Mooney to make a representation in support of the application. And you have 5 minutes, and the clock will start when you start talking, Councillor Mooney. So.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to present this evening and in support of the applicant. Members, the application which has been presented with no objections from any neighbouring properties or any form of statutory consultees. This modest site would be nestled to the rear of number 69 Battle Hill Road, Portadown. The site's topography, along with the surrounding landscape, will ensure that the proposal will not be prominent. The application site slopes away from the ground level of number 69 Battle Hill Road, which in part is a story and a half dwelling, denoted a single story within committee report. Travelling south along Dramard Road nearby, a modest dwelling on this relatively small plot will be viewed with a backdrop of the existing development along Battle Hill Road and Clonroot Road, and the rising topography beyond. Travelling north along Dramard Road, the fall in ground levels, combined with both proposed and existing landscaping, will suitably integrate the proposal in compliance with CTY 8, 13, 14, and the first part of Criterion 4. The agent will address in more detail how the proposal meets all other criteria outlined in CTY 2A. The primary objective, members, of the regional development strategy is set out as to develop an attractive and prosperous rural area based on a balanced and integrated approach to development to sustain a strong and vibrant rural community. This goal is further reinforced in PPS 21 and SPPS. The agent has submitted for circulation to the committee a Planning Appeals Committee decision that was reversed as it followed the main thrust of policy CTY 8 in the provision of a rural dwelling. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Moutry. And I'll also now welcome Sheila Curtin to Planning and I. Sheila, just whenever you're ready, you start speaking and the timer will come down for you.
Chairperson and committee members, thank you for the opportunity.
Sorry. I hadn't given them enough time to set up the clock. Sheila, apologies. We'll start. Are we ready now? Are we ready now? Yeah, whenever you're ready, Sheila, apologies for that.
Okay. Chairperson and committee members, thank you for the opportunity to speak and support the application this afternoon. The committee report recognises that there is a perception of linear development at this location. It also verifies that development is situated at a crossroads. The crossroads is known locally as the highway gap. Policy CTY 2A is the only policy within PPS 21 that does not provide further clarity in the form of justification and amplification text. Policy CTY 2A also does not specify the required shape of a cluster. The dictionary defines a cluster as a group of things of the same type that grow or appear together. Consequently, a cluster can take the form of a linear arrangement and does not need to be a circular or radiate from all roads of the crossroads. To deny the application based on the premise that the current cluster of development is depicted as a linear formation exceeds the stipulations of the policy and improperly introduces an additional criteria to policy CTY 2A, which cannot be justified as grounds for refusal. The committee report indicates that there is a gap in the ribbon of development adjacent to number 67 due to the removal of disused farm buildings to its west. When the application was first submitted in November 2022, these outbuildings were still present. The applicant has been adversely affected by the 24-month delay in bringing this application before committee. A case officer's report related to a recent application described the parcel of land to the west of 67 Battle Hill Road as within the curtilage of number 67. Since the area of land between number 67 Battle Hill Road and the crossroads forms part of the curtilage number 67, it is contended that no gap exists. For all the reasons above, it is contended that there is a significant cluster development in this area that stretches for 530 metres from number 59 Battle Hill Road to number 73 Battle Hill Road, presenting itself as a cohesive visual entity at the Highway Gap crossroads. To conclude, and with regards to criterion 4 of CTY 2A, it stipulates that the site is bounded on at least 2 sides with other development within the cluster. The application site has an irregular shape, 7 sides, 4 of which are bounded by other development in the cluster. To the north, it is bounded by number 69 Battle Hill Road, and to the southwest, it is bounded by newly built dwelling. The proposal is, we contend, in compliance with all relevant policies, and we cordially request that the recommendation to refuse is overturned as it goes beyond the policy requires. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheila. If you don't mind just putting on silent. Members, hand over to yourselves. Any questions in relation to this application to the planners or the supporters of this application? It's over to you, members. Any questions? Councillor Duffy.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. Said there was buildings around it when it was first applied for. Is there any pictures or anything of these buildings? You know, that we could see, you know.
Here's a question.
Might make a difference anyway.
Yeah, are we able to get those pictures back up then, are we? Yeah. I'm sorry, we're being...
Sorry, Chair, I know they're not within the report, but they were saying they were there when it was first applied for, you know, but there was a long delay and the buildings had since been removed. So we just want to know, is there any real hard evidence that the buildings actually were there?
Can I give Nick, pass this over to Nicola then?
Oh, hello, sorry. The aerial photograph would show some detail of the buildings that were there. They weren't there when I was out on site, so they're not in my photographs of the viewpoints from that side. Although I'm not sure if Sheila's making the case that those are relevant, because really there are PAC decisions that say that any development that's being considered has to be immediately adjacent to the site. They can't be across a road. A road has been already confirmed in other PAC decisions and decisions that we've taken that those aren't, that wouldn't be a relevant consideration anyway. I think the case that Sheila's possibly making is the fact that the curtilage of number 69A, which is the new dwelling, there's 2 infill dwellings you can see on that aerial photograph. Well, the first one immediately beside the dwelling number 69 is actually the dwelling right at the crossroads of Drumard Road with Battle Hill Road, and the house immediately west of it is 69A. What Sheila's making the case, I think, is the fact that the curtilage of that property goes further back and overlaps then the back of this proposed site. But I'm not sure whether maybe Sheila wants to clarify that. But the buildings on the other side of the road have all been removed. And even, I mean, we have to consider what the present circumstances of any site are. So even if they were there, you know, or not even if they were there, at the minute they're not there, so we can't really consider them anyway.
you, Nicola. Councillor Duffy, do you want to come back in on that, or?
No, just like Sheila's view up there too.
Okay, Sheila.
Yes, there was a number of points that I was making with regards to number 67. I suppose the first point was to do with clarity in the case officer's report. The report was saying that the buildings have now been removed so that the line of development associated with the crossroad is completed at number 69. But in fact, the development at the crossroad extends to both sides of the Battle Hill Road. So therefore, the existing line of development, i.e. your group of buildings, is longer than what the case officer report implies, because those buildings, well, originally when we went out to visit the site originally, those buildings were intact and in place. So it extended the line of development along Battle Hill Road. Gave a greater impression of development at that location.
Thank you, Sheila. Councillor Duffy, you're content. Can I bring in Nicola just to maybe sorry.
I'd maybe just like to clarify as well, number 67, there was a recent approval for replacement dwelling on that site. So the site was actually cleared for that application. They received a replacement dwelling and they received a infill dwelling actually on the site, which is further east of that building, of the house. The actual site, which was on the crossroads, they actually came in for separate application for an infill dwelling, and that recently got refused. It was refused about 2 months ago. It was considered under both clustering and infill, and it wasn't considered to meet the criteria for a dwelling. So on the other side of the crossroads, there wasn't a separate planning application, but it's already determined.
Thank you, Nicola. Councillor Duffy, I have a question. Okay, Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clear, missed the first half of Nicola's presentation there. Just to keep us right, I'm just not going to take part in the rest of this debate on this application. Thanks.
No problem. Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, it's just a wee query on the site itself. So I'm not sure who could clarify, maybe Sheila. For number 69, 69A and 69C on the proposed site, are those all in the ownership of the applicant? And I suppose another question would be, well, I'll deal with that one first. If you could deal with that one, then I'll come back.
Sheila, were you able to hear that question okay?
Yes, Chair, I heard the question. It is my understanding that number 69 is not in the control of the applicant, but 69A and C are family members of the applicant.
Alderman Wilson, you want to come back in?
Yeah, thank you. And just in terms of, I know we've dealt with clusters in the past, and the focal point issue has always been something that's been particularly important. Is there any sort of focal point? I know sometimes it can be a community hall and that type of thing. Is it, I'm not aware specifically of this location in detail, but I'm just wondering, is there any focal point at any stage along that route within the proximity of the site that that is considered?
Just clarify, yes, Alderman Wilson, is that for Sheila again, was it, or Nicola?
Thank you, Chair. The focal point in this case for that criteria is the crossroads. There's no other buildings, so it's the crossroads which is being raised as the relevant point within that part of the policy consideration.
Alderman Wilson, any other questions? Members, any other questions in relation to this application? No. Okay, members, we'll move into debate stage. So it's your chance to have your say on this. It all laid up at once. Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Just regarding the issues are those other ones that Nicola brought up there, those other 3 or 4 ones that had been before the Planning Appeals Commission, and they had been obviously dismissed at that time. It was turned down. So unfortunately, I think this one's something along the same lines. You know, those other ones seem to have good aerial views, seem to be nearly in the cluster too, but the Planning Appeal Commission obviously had deemed them not. So I doubt we'll have to fall along the line with this one.
Thank you, Alderman Kennedy. Members, any other comments? Okay, members, going to move to decision. A proposal will have to be made and decision taken on this, so hand it over to yourselves. All members, anybody want to take? We need to have a proposal on this one way or another. Alderman Kennedy.
Unfortunately, I think we'll have to follow the officer's recommendation. This one, there's quite a few issues. It's not just 1 or 2 issues. There's several issues outstanding on the application. So I propose to accept the officer's recommendation.
Yeah, and hand over to Councillor Duffy.
Yes, unfortunately, just have to tend to agree with that, and I'll second that recommendation.
Members, we have a proposal to refuse this application, and proposed by Alderman Kennedy and was seconded by Councillor Duffy. Are we in agreement in the room, members, with this proposal? I need something. Happy enough? 5-1. Yeah, I'm getting consensus within the room this evening. So on the proposal of Alderman Kennedy and seconded by Councillor Duffy to refuse this application. Thank you very much, Councillor Moutry and Sheila Curtin. I really appreciate your input on this application. Members, we're going to move on to Appendix 4. It is application number LA 08 2024 0579F and Boreal Limited, and it is up for approval. And before I hand over to our Kyle Elder, Senior Planning Officer, just remind members an addendum report has been circulated, and the following are also in attendance and have speaking rights for clarification purposes only. John Scally from Carlin Planning and Tiernan Fitzlarkin from Carlin Planning. So I'm going to hand over to Kyle Elder, the Senior Planning Officer, to present the report and PowerPoint presentation.
This planning application seeks full planning permission for the erection of 2 use class B2 light industrial buildings consisting of 5 units and associated parking at the Finney Drive in Carn Industrial Estate in Craigavon. The application is before you this evening as the application attracts an objection from a statutory consultee, NI Water, and is recommended for approval. Officers have taken it, members have read the report and the addendum in full, and as such, this is a synopsis only. The site is located within the development limit of the Craigavon urban area on an area zoned as existing industrial land as defined by map number 5 of the Craigavon area plan. Members are advised that officers consider that the development complies with the zoning of this land. The development is therefore considered to comply with the requirements of the area plan. The proposal would fall under Class B2 light industrial of the Plan and Use Classes Order. Plan policy PED 1 of PPS 4 operates a presumption in favour of development such that a development proposal incorporating the Class B2 light industrial use will be permitted in an area specifically allocated for such purposes in a development plan. Officers therefore are of the opinion that the proposed Class B2 use is acceptable in principle and that policy PED 1 is satisfied. 2 buildings are proposed within this application. The design, scale, massing and choice of external materials are in keeping with other buildings in the wider industrial estate. As such, the development is considered to appear sympathetic to the surrounding buildings in Defini Drive and the wider Carn industrial estate. The proposed landscaping arrangements are deemed appropriate for this development. Officers are therefore of the opinion that the proposed buildings and associated yard and parking areas will not have an unacceptable visual impact and will satisfactorily visually integrate into the immediate area. Officers raised no concerns over the design and layout in relation to the SPPS, living places, or policy DES 2 of a planning strategy for rural Northern Ireland. The nearest dwellings to the site are located along Charlestown Road, approximately 170 metres northwest of the site. Having regard to the noise policy statement for Northern Ireland, officers in consultation with environmental health have no concerns with respect to noise, light or odour, owing to the proposed use of the premises for Class B2 purposes and the separation distance to the nearest sensitive receptors. Members are reminded that the Planning Use Classes Order defines a Class B2 use as being any industrial process which can be carried out without detriment to amenity by reason of noise, vibration, smell, fumes, smoke, soot, ash, dust or grit. As such, the proposal is considered to comply with Annex A of the SPPS and Policy PED 1 of PPS 4 and creates no conflict with the relevant criteria of Policy PED 9 of PPS 4. Transport assessment form has been submitted in support of the application. The proposal seeks to utilise an existing vehicular access onto Defini Drive. The access to the development is considered to comply with policy MP2 of PPS 3 and DFA roads have raised no concerns. The development will result in 131 car movements into and out of the site daily. Also, there's proposed to be 4 ordinary good vehicle 1 and 4 ordinary good vehicle 2 movements weekly at the site and 16 LGV movements daily. The TAF states that the peak times for accessing the site are likely to be the traditional commuter peak hours of between 7:30 and 8:30 a.m. and 3:30 and 4:30 p.m. The development proposes 58 car parking spaces and 5 spaces for good vehicles and 10 cycle parking spaces, which is in keeping with parking standards. Officers in consultation with DFA roads are therefore content that the proposed development accords with the SPPS and policies AMP2 and MP7 of PPS 3, the relevant criteria in policy PED 9 of PPS 4 and parking standards document. Drainage assessment has also been submitted and has been considered, and DFA Rivers have raised no objections, so officers consider there to be no conflict with the SPPS and policy provisions of PPS 15 and the relevant sections within policy PED 9 of PPS 4. Northern Ireland Water, in its consultation response, has advised that an assessment has indicated that there are capacity issues, and this establishes significant risks of detrimental effect to the environment and detrimental impact on existing properties. NI Water note that the downstream catchment is constrained by overloaded sewage infrastructure, including 1 or more downstream unsatisfactory intermittent discharges, which is causing a negative impact on the environment. These discharges are recorded at a common embankment which discharges to Clouded River. In keeping with the P reference 2021/AO231, confirmation has been provided from the agent that an engineering solution for the disposal of wastewater can be found. Accordingly, in line with this appeal decision, officers have recommended the inclusion of a negative planning condition prohibiting the commencement of any development until a wastewater impact assessment confirms that a sewage connection can be made or that alternative provision for disposal of sewage is made, and this is submitted to and agreed in writing by the planning authority. This would ensure that any concerns in respect of sewage capacity are properly addressed before the development can proceed. The impact of the development on features of natural and built heritage and contamination has been considered, and officers in consultation with the competent authorities in these matters have not identified any concerns. Members are advised that no objections have been received regarding this plan application. So overall, officers consider the proposal to comply with the local development plan, the policy requirements of the SPPS and all other relevant planning policies, and on that basis approval is recommended for the reasons outlined in the report and the addendum and subject to the conditions suggested in the report and the addendum. So I'll just take you through the presentation now. Okay, so as I detailed in the earlier part of the presentation, the site is located within Carn Industrial Estate. The next slide then just shows the site location plan with the site outlined in red. The next slide then just shows an aerial view of the site. So you can see just the wider Carn Industrial Estate there. And just for context, just further south east of the site is the MOT Centre, which is also accessed off Definny Drive. This is just an extract from the area plan. So as you can see, it's in a land zone as existing industrial lands. Next slide then is the site layout plan. So the access is taken from Definny Drive. So block 2, as you enter the site to the left, it will have 3 units contained within it, and the block to the rear will contain 2 units. Next slide then just shows the floor plans of block 1. So you can see that there's a small element of that which will be 2-story, but predominantly would be single-story. And the next slide then just shows the elevations. Next slide then just shows the block plan of, or the floor plan, sorry, of block 2, which is all single story. And then the next slide will show the elevations. And these are just the boundary treatments, which are fairly standard for this type of development. So this is a photograph taken from Definny Drive facing towards the site. You can see the red car, which is at the existing access to the site, which would be the access to this development as well. Next slide is just taken from the Carn Road with our site to the right-hand side to the rear of that fencing. This photograph is just taken along the northeastern boundary, which is defined by fencing, and you can see just another factory complex to the rear of the site. Next slide then again is taken from the northeastern boundary, just facing southwest, so you can just see the existing concrete road that is on the site, but all the buildings that were on the site have been cleared previously. And then just another from the same view, just facing south. Okay, this just shows a wee bit of context from just past the entrance to the site. You can just see some of the other industrial development nearby. And I think, yeah, and then this site then, just from that same point, just facing northeast. That concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Members, over to yourselves. Any questions in relation to this application? Yeah. There's no lights on this, members. Move to debate. Over to yourselves. Councillor Duffy.
Yes, Chair, it's sort of, there was buildings here before. It's an industrial estate. There is going to be probably more in the hope that we'll build up this barge along Stanton Industrial Estate. I don't know why this is the second proposal for in around that area, that NI Water have come back with a sewage problem. Says it's just doesn't look good for any companies looking to invest and to grow within the area, that they keep coming back with that as an excuse when the planners can mitigate these issues out. So I'm definitely for this application and look forward to a lot more within an industrial estate where these type of things should be built. Sure.
I think we can all agree with that. Councillor Duffy, any other comments on that, members? No. Okay, members, the decision item, I'll need a proposal on this application. Councillor Duffy.
Happy to propose the application. Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy and Councillor Flaherty.
Yes, Chair, happy to second.
Thank you, councillor Flaherty. Members, we have proposal on, or proposed by councillor Duffy to approve this application, seconded by councillor Flaherty. Are we all in agreement? Yep, consensus in the room. Thank you very much, members. Thank you very much, Kyle, for that presentation. Members, move on to Appendix 5. Or sorry, also thank John Scally and Tiernan Fitzlarkin for joining us as well. Appendix 5, members, application LA 08 2024 0754F, Portdown Men's Shed. It's an application that is brought to us for approval. For handover to Nicola Craney. Just to remind members, an addendum report has been circulated prior to the meeting. So Nicola, over to yourself to present this report and PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission for the erection of a single-storey community building for the men's shed at Eden Villa Park in Portadown. The application is being presented to committee as the council owns the land, and NI Water have objected to the proposal. The building is to provide a facility which will be built for purpose and provide access for all. The men's shed are currently located in community buildings adjacent to the site. The proposal is a community facility which will share resources at this location. The impact of the proposed building has been considered in the context of the open space at Eden Villa Park, as it's a local landscape policy area and is designated open space. Outside of the town centre. Officers have assessed a proposal against the development plan and all the relevant planning policies, and as set out in detail in the report and the addendum, officers are of the view that this proposal is acceptable in principle. In terms of the objection from NI Water, the agent has advised an engineering solution can be achieved to deal with wastewater concerns. In line with the recent PAC decision and as noted in the report, officers are content to recommend approval subject to a pre-commencement condition that a wastewater impact assessment is submitted and approved prior to commencement. There are no third-party representations received, and officers are recommending that this permission is granted. I'll just go through the presentation. Next slide, please. So the site actually is Eden Villa Park, which is just east of the Portadown Town Centre, just on the outskirts. Next slide, please. This is an aerial view of the site. As you can see, there's a walled garden, which is sort of the area of sort of maintenance and buildings in the site. Next slide, please. This is site location plan. Next slide, please. This is the proposed layout, and you can see the building just sort of slots into that gap within the existing built framework. Next slide, please. This is the view then of the site immediately adjacent to this shed. Next slide, please. It's just another view towards the gap then that this building will be constructed in. Next slide, please. That's just a view then just of that immediate area, that sort of built up area. Next slide, please. Just another view then of the wall just immediately adjacent. I think that concludes, the elevations and then the floor plans. Next slide, please. Yeah. Just a small, modest building. That concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola, for the presentation. Members, any questions? The planning officer on that one? Councillor Flaherty.
Thank you, Chair. And maybe it's not directly for this plan, but see this, can you just clear this up with me maybe? Do you see this issue coming from NI Water? And again, I'm saying this again because I'm learning very quickly at this, but we did have a piece of correspondence earlier, which I'd read, and it's talking about these closed areas. Is this part of this problem, even though there are existing buildings on that site that have been used for the same reason? They're still coming back. That's what I can't get my head around. If there's already, because this is a replaced it's a modest building for this group that it exists already on the site. So there's already, I don't understand where this NI water business is and how we're going to get around this. I understand you're saying here that there's conditions built in, that's grand, and that can be, what was the word, engineering solution? That's a great term, engineering solution. So we can sort that. There's nothing that in this world that can't be surmounted. But is this purely just down to NI water have no money to do this? Yeah, pretty much.
Well, this application had to be presented because it's in council land anyway. That's an additional issue, and yes, it has to be presented as well if they have an objection, and in this case they do. And they've provided information that they can deal with this, so we will propose that. Any application where a statutory consultee has an objection or recommends refusal has to be presented as part of the protocol. And would have to be presented to members. There are PAC decisions though out there that have provided conditions, and we're using that same condition. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring in Damien here just to touch more on that NI water point, Councillor Flaherty, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Flaherty. I'll just elaborate a bit on what Nicholas said, because you mentioned the correspondence from NI Water that was shared with members earlier today. Yeah, and that correspondence does mention the financial pressures that they're facing and the difficulties they have in improving their network and also their wastewater treatment works. Look, we're in a position where we understand their concerns. The Planning Appeals Commission, we are legally obliged to follow the precedent that they set. They are using conditions to address this particular issue, and we're following suit. And that's just to clarify the position, as Nicola mentioned. Thanks, Chair.
You, Damien, Councillor Flaherty, you want to back in? You're happy enough? No other question, members. We'll go to debate on this one. So, floor is open. Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, the main shed has been operating on this site, so it's more or less just an upgrade of facilities to give them better conditions and so on. And it is a very important thing in the community's main shed there. I know a few of the ones in Armagh there, and it's more or less their space and the mental health issues and so on and so forth. So I think this is a positive that they're getting a wee upgrade on better facilities on site.
Thank you, Alderman Kennedy. Councillor Duffy.
Yes, Chair, tend to agree, especially in Men's Health Month. It is now at the minute, so such an appropriate thing coming forward is definitely supported and by this party.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I don't know, members probably can't see I'm trying to grow a moustache out for November, and it's not really going too well. It's not great, is it? But no, it is very important. Men's health and especially mental health, and the men's shed does do good work. Bring men together and talk. So I don't think there'll be much pushback from any of us in here, and then trying to improve their facilities. So members, we need, this is a decision item. So if there's anything for Councillor Flaherty.
Yes, thank you, Chair. More than happy to propose.
Thank you, Councillor Flaherty and Councillor Moodry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, more than happy to second the officer's recommendation. Great to see the group grow and expand. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moodry. I don't think the proposal to accept the application proposed by Councillor Flaherty, seconded by Councillor Moodry. Everyone in agreement with that one? Yep, no problem. Thank you very much, members, and thank you very much, Nicola, for the report and presentation. Okay, members, we're going to move on to Appendix 6, application LA 08 2024. 0644F, for Hillmark Homes Limited, and it's up for approval. Before I hand over to our Senior Planning Officer, Kyle Elder, just remind all members, an addendum report has been circulated prior to this meeting. I also welcome Grania Rice from Donaldson Planning, who's the agent, and Stephen Elliott from Hillmark Homes, who is the applicant, who will be making a representation in support of the application. Just for who's taking the presentation. Yep. It will be Grania. So before I hand over to yourselves, I'm going to give it to Kyle Elder, who will be run us through the report and the PowerPoint. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair. And just before I start the presentation, I just want to draw members' attention to condition 24, which was suggested by DFA Roads. Within that, a reference is made to the Madden Road. So that's a typo. That should be Old Guildford Road, as the access is solely off Old Guildford Road. So if members do agree with the proposal here today, we will change that prior to issuing the decision. So this plan application seeks full plan permission for the demolition of a vacant factory and associated buildings and the erection of residential development comprising 49 dwellings, some with solar panels, garages, communal amenity space, landscaping and associated site works at Old Guildford Road in Tanragee. The works also include a pedestrian link to an existing pathway to Madden Road and a bus lay-by at Madden Road. The application is before you this evening, as it is a major plan application. Members have read the report and the addendum in full, and as such, this is a synopsis only. The application site is located within the development limit of Tanragee and is located partially on land zoned for housing and partially on unzoned white land, as depicted by the Armagh area plan. As detailed in the report, the demolition of the factory on the site is considered acceptable in the context of the SPPS, as the proposed redevelopment is considered to result in a betterment to Orange House at 31 to 33 Guildford Street, which is a Grade B1 listed building. Officers raised no conflict between the proposed development and the area plan or the SPPS. Therefore, the proposal to develop the site for residential purposes is considered acceptable in principle. Regarding the proposed sign layout and amenity, officers raised no concerns for the reasons detailed in the report. The proposed density is considered to be acceptable for this area. There is a minimum separation distance of 10 metres from the rear elevation of each proposed dwelling to the common boundary, and a minimum of 20 metres per dwellings back onto each other, in accordance with creating places. Officers are satisfied that the proposed development would not unduly affect the amenity of any neighbouring property or development. Members are advised that in this instance, officers have raised no concerns regarding the policy provisions of PPS 7, the addendum to PPS 7, PPS 12, or creating places. The site will be accessed solely from Old Guildford Road. DFA Roads have been consulted regarding the proposed access arrangements and raised no concerns in the context of policy AMP2 of PPS 3. Road-related works also include the provision of pedestrian link to an existing footway leading to Madden Road, bus lay-by on Madden Road, and a footpath along a section of frontage on the Madden Road. DFA Roads have raised no concerns with these proposals. 98 in Curtilage parking spaces are proposed, 49 communal on-street visitor parking spaces, and 2 in Curtilage visitor parking spaces. A total of 149 parking spaces are proposed within the development, meeting the requirements of the parking standards document, which requires 143 spaces. In addition, other parking opportunities are available within the development. As detailed in the report, in this instance, neither officers nor DFA Roads raise any concerns over the parking provision proposed. Officers in this instance are content that the proposed development complies with the SPPS and policies AMP2 and AMP7 of PPS 3. The proposal was also accompanied by a drainage assessment, Northern Ireland biodiversity checklist, transport assessment form, landscape management and maintenance plan, contamination assessment, and a remediation strategy. These documents have been appraised by officers in consultation with the relevant competent authorities who have raised no objections. As detailed in the reports, the proposed solar panels are also considered to be acceptable in this instance with regards to policies RE1 and RE2 of PPS 18. The applicant proposes the use of main sewage. NI Water in its consultation response advised that there is available capacity at Tandragee wastewater treatment works. So officers following consultation with NI Water considered the development is capable of being carried out without concern regarding paragraph 4.12 of the SPPS regarding the handling of sewage. Members are advised that one letter of objection has been received regarding this planning application. The points raised in objection have been fully considered in the report and the assessment of this plan application. So overall, officers consider the proposal to comply with the local development plan, the policy requirements of the SPPS, and all other relevant planning policies. And on that basis, approval is recommended for the reasons outlined in the report and the addendum, and subject to the conditions suggested in the report and the addendum. Just take you through the presentation now. Okay, so the site's located within the settlement of Tandragee towards the southeastern end of the development. Next slide then just shows the site location plan with the site outlined in red. So you can see just towards the south of the site, the factory, which fronts onto Old Guildford Road, and then the field above, which connects Old Guildford Road at the south east and the Madden Road at the northwest. This is just an aerial view of the sites, so you can see the existing factory there and the further housing in Woodview Park to the north. It's just an extract from the area plan. So if you can just see the orange polygon there, that loosely shows the application site. So you can see it's partially white land, which is where the factory is, and then the red is zoned housing land. It's just the site layout plan. So the development creates one access onto Old Guildford Road, and then access road then leads through the development with areas of open space along Old Guildford Road and then spread throughout the development, as you can see there. And then next slide just shows the proposed landscaping plan. So many of the existing boundary treatments are to be retained and enhanced throughout the development with additional planting, I believe 101 additional trees throughout the scheme. It's just quite a lot of house types. There's quite a lot of different finishes within these house types. So some are finished in brick, some are rendered, and most have a combination of the two. All of the houses in the development have provide 4 bedrooms. So this is over a combination of 2 stories and 2.5 stories. And as we go through, you'll see some have solar panels and some don't. Also, just to point out that towards the front of the site, the dwellings can read with the listed buildings, so the materials in those buildings are more sensitive. So if you're just content, just to maybe run through those different house types, please. Okay, and that's just the garage plan, which again is fairly standard for a residential development. Next slide then just shows some of the cross sections. So the top cross section there would be the view from Old Guildford Road. Next slide then just shows the first photograph. So this is taken from Old Guildford Road. Our site's just to the right hand side and starts just beyond the red wall there, so you can see the field and then the factory. So just highlighted the listed building, Orange House, which is a grade B1 listed building. So as you can see, the existing factory doesn't have very sensitive materials, and it would read with that building. So if you just look at the next CGI image on the next slide, you can see that the development is set back further than the factory, and then the use of landscaping just gives a better respect and to the listed building and complies fully with policy BH11 of PPS 6. Next slide then is just a closer up, just to show how Orange House then just reads with that viewpoint. Next slide then is just a photograph of the factory from Old Guildford Road. And the next one then is a view of the side of the factory, just taken from the application site. This is a photograph of number 10 Old Guildford Road. So at the moment it doesn't have a fully defined curtilage and opens out into the application site. So as part of the application, that curtilage will be defined. Next slide then shows a few of the sites just facing north towards Woodview Park. So you will see as we go through the presentation that the surrounding dwellings are predominantly on a higher elevation than what are proposed within this application. And then this next slide then is just a few of the sites. So I'm standing with my back to the Old Guildford Road, facing towards the Madden Road. So you can just see the gradual decline in the gradient of the site. And for any of the members who are familiar with the area, you'll just see in the middle behind the trees there is a Tandragee Recreational Centre. So this is just from the northwestern corner of the site facing east towards Woodview. So again, you'll just note that those dwellings are on a much higher topography than what's proposed in this application. Next slide then is just a photograph of the northern boundary of the site. So there is a pedestrian link between Woodview and the Madden Road to the rear of that boundary, in which this development will open onto. This is just then a photograph just of the southern boundary. Next slide then is just off a photograph of the Madden Road. So the hedging here and 3 trees will be removed to facilitate a bus thereby, and then a footpath which then links back to the footpath which is shown on the next slide, which will link up to Woodview Park and the application site. And then the final slide then is just from a neighbouring property at 8 Guildford Street. So to the rear of the evergreen trees there is the factory. So you can see the site is quite well enclosed. Obviously, we have got good boundary treatments proposed within the application site, but you can see that that property is very well screened, and those trees are under the control of number 8 Guildford Street, not the applicant. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Kyle, for the report and presentation. I'm going to hand over to Grania Rice, who's going to make a representation in support of the application. Grania, you'll have 3 minutes. As soon as you start speaking, the clock will start. So.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for the opportunity to speak in support of this residential proposal by Hillmark Homes in Tandragee. We also wish to thank the planning officers within the major projects team for a very engaged and proactive processing of this application. This is demonstrated by the timescale of only 3 months or 13 weeks from validation to committee presentation. The proposed development represents a significant investment by the Portadown-based Hillmark Homes, which is currently building the prestigious Long Ridge development at the Hollows in Lurgan, Balnamoney View in Craigavon, and Inroad in Dollingstown, as well as many other completed developments within this council area and throughout Northern Ireland. The overall construction value for this site will be approximately £10 million and will generate around £100,000 in rates per year for council. It is anticipated that approximately 50 construction jobs will be maintained each year over the construction period. Proposals will provide 49 homes on zoned housing land and also regenerate a yard which has been unoccupied for many years. Overall, it is clear that this proposal is consistent with policy. The development of the site will secure significant investment for Tandragee, bringing a wide choice of high-quality homes for residents. We therefore request that committee grant permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grania. Members, any questions for either the planning officer or the agent or applicant? Yeah, Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, thank you. And it is good, generally to see an application coming forward for this site. It'd be really good to see one coming for the other site just to the north of it, but that continues to be a ghost site and continues to give plenty of problems. But it is a relief to see this site being developed. A couple of queries arising from that, which would like some clarity on, and maybe the developers could assist with it. Picture 12, if you could bring back up again on the scheme, shows the very well used public footway between Woodview Park and Madden Road, and it has sort of been an ongoing issue just with the ghost site and also then with the hedge and rough sort of tree line that borders the site that we're looking at today. And I'm just wondering, the drawing itself, when I tried to bring it up on the big computer at home, it was crashing on me when I went to 100%, so I couldn't just read some of the text associated with it. But I'd like a wee bit of clarity in terms of the tree line and that, and I would like to see that whole hedge line removed because it has been so problematic. And I know Hillmark did kindly put some resources to it there a few months back to really sort of trim back because it was encroaching so much on the walkway. And I think there is an opportunity. I'm gauging that there's going to be an access point or maybe two access points from the new development, if approved, that will allow pedestrians to access that path both from Madden Road and also on up in along the development out onto that public footway, sort of halfway up. Is there not an argument, and would planners not rather see that hedge line removed and a good sensible fence put up that would be much easier maintained and produce much less issues for local residents? If that could be addressed first, and then have another question just on the HED element of it.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. That's the picture you're talking about there. That's up on the screen now. Do you want to get Kyle to answer that one on, just see if that's possible?
Yeah, the proposal that we have before us this evening is for the retention of that boundary. So that boundary then would be required to be maintained by any of the homeowners who back onto that. To remove that would potentially have ecological concerns in terms of removal of trees. That would have to be looked at by an ecologist to make sure, for example, that there'd be no bat roost or anything like that. So in terms of the proposal as is, that hedge is to remain.
Alderman Wilson, just going to bring in Damien just on a point.
Thanks, Chair. Alderman Wilson, it's just to raise an issue relating to the protocol. I suppose the protocol is very clear that members aren't to be seen to be negotiating the applications that are before them, and that the application that is before us is for determination, not an opportunity to negotiate changes. Understand where you're coming from. I completely understand the point you're making, but it's just to keep you and the committee within the terms of the protocol. And I'm raising it only for that issue, but I totally understand the point you're making. Anne might want to elaborate if she thinks there's anything to add to that. But look, I just thought it was necessary to make the point. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm aware of it, but concerns do directly relate from the level of constituency feedback I get on this particular path. And I know, I'm surprised that it is to be retained as it is, because it makes no sense. And I'm not seeking to negotiate. I'm just wondering why, and maybe the developers can answer why they're considering the retention of it, because at the frontage they're not considering that. They're on the Madden Road, that which again is sensible, but I think it would be ultra sensible to have a different approach on that walkway, and I just cannot understand why. And I'm not negotiating. I'm simply asking the question why it isn't seen to be prudent to have that issue, because I've seen it in lots of other areas where trees are providing a major source of concern for residents, and then when they go to try and do something with them, there's problems with doing that. There's costs associated with doing that, and I just think, you know, there's an opportunity there to deal more effectively with that boundary than looking at photo 12 at the minute, and I would value, you know, the developer's view on it.
Okay, Gwen, I'm going to pass over to you. Happy enough to take on that?
Thank you, member, for your question. Yes, in relation to the hedgerow, we didn't receive any representations as such on that issue, so it hasn't been something that we necessarily addressed during the assessment of the application. However, we're also only able to deal with stuff within our control or ownership, so I'm not sure that the entirety of the hedgerow is within Hillmark's control. It's certainly something we can look into, and I think when they tidied up the hedgerow on previous occasions, it was more or less as a courtesy and as a way to try and tidy up the area and be responsible in that respect. We're also stuck between a rock and a hard place because the planning policy requires us to retain those boundaries for ecological purposes. I know you mentioned to the front of the site at Old Guildford Road where hedgerows and vegetation there's a limited amount being taken away, but that's on the basis that it's required for visibility splays. So again, policy dictates that we provide those splays and replant and provide augmentation to the rear of those splays as appropriate. Look, it's certainly something we can look into and give it due consideration, but the proposal as it stands before committee is that the hedgerow is retained and faced and tidied up, and then those residents take ownership of everything within their boundary.
Thanks for that. And I suppose just another question, if residents are going to take control of the boundary, and if you're saying there's some, you know, clarity needed on the actual ownership of the boundary, I'm just curious as to how a resident can assume, you know, control of the boundary if you don't consider yourselves to be in control of the full boundary. At what point does residents, because this is going to be an issue, and I'm going to be the, you know, me and the other Cusher councillors are going to be the one that deal with it, and I know because that's been the case up to now, so that's why I'm getting a bit, you know, antsy about this. But I'm just saying, you know, what assurances can you give that residents will be able to do something with that, you know, given that you can't give me total assurance that you have full control of what we're looking at in photo 12 on the right hand side there? And will there be even a fence to the back of it, or what way will it be left? Because the drawing wasn't completely clear in that.
I think the intention through the chair is to face back the hedgerow within each owner's garden, and then we will, during the conveyancing process, detailed plans are drawn up that show the exact extent of their ownership, and it gets clarified through the process. But look, I certainly take on board your comments and do understand that this is quite a live issue on many sites that we deal with. So we will try to respond to that as best we can during the development of the site.
Sorry, just the last point, just on from the HCD's perspective on the listed build, I'm just wondering, given the layout of the site, I'm just wondering how sensible is it then for HCD to be stipulating the windows and that type of thing on, you know, because all the other houses are going to have PVC windows, are really low maintenance, efficient, sensible, and then HCD technically we are endorsing policy point that says, or a condition that says, no, they have to be hardwood. And I mean, there's maintenance with hardwood that other residents aren't going to have. And then we look to the east of the site, and there's that red brick building with, you know, white PVC windows that are quite dramatic, if you like, in terms of their appearance, you know, but there's nothing can be done about that, obviously. But why then the insistence that, you know, a certain number of these houses have to have metal rainwater goods and hardwood windows when everyone else will have a much, you know, more maintenance friendly spec to their house. I'm just curious about that. Whenever, you know, there's a limited view of the listed building and a limited view of the windows in that listed building. And I'm assuming there's no detail on what the color would be. So I'm presuming if those windows are white, which they look to be in the photo on the listed building, then why is there no stipulation that those windows have to be white? And then if they are stipulated that they have to be white, what's that going to look like against all the rest of the houses that'll be PVC and maybe a different color? Just curious about the overreach, in my view, of HED in these situations.
Yep, so HED are obviously a statutory consultee for us on this application, given the proximity of the listed building. So the development is required to comply with policy BH11 of PPS 6. So in terms of the materials, it has to respect the setting of the listed building. So I know during the processing of the application, it was an issue that was raised, and we did facilitate a site meeting with HED, but ultimately it was decided that I think it's house number 49, which is closest. It has to be finished in render, and then has the restriction on the windows and the rainwater goods. And then the remaining units along the front, then the front elevation has to respect that. But obviously, going by HED, the competent authority, that's required to ensure compliance with policy BH11 of PPS 6, and we have sought their advice and followed their advice on that point.
Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Just would like to welcome this. Derelict site has been lying for 20 years and bring it back into use for it's deemed no longer fit for industrial purposes. So it'll be good to see it back into use for so much sought after area. Tandagee, 49 more houses. Any house goes up for sale in Tandagee, it doesn't last very long. But the issue I had, Alderman Wilson just touched on it there. I want to know, it said that in the houses that back onto the path will be responsible. I was wondering how you're going to police this issue. You know, every house will be deeming it themselves individually type thing. But the householder, they could erect a fence again the path, and then it could leave a dead zone in between their fence and the path. You could have an old area grew up out bramble and stuff. So how do you police this? Who looks after that?
Kelly, you happy enough to take that one? Just clarify.
Yeah, in terms of the conditions, condition 7 has been included that the vegetation is to be retained. So we have that by condition. So any removal would be a breach of a condition, and potentially could be open up an enforcement case, in which case it could be looked at. But yeah, so to try and ensure compliance, we have included that condition.
Happy enough, Alderman Kennedy? Yep. Alderman Wilson?
I'm just wondering then, from a committee perspective, in terms of that condition, how is it possible to leave it less restrictive, you know, by altering that condition in some way, that then, you know, residents, if they felt that the hedge was beginning to be a major issue, that they could take action on it? Because I think that's important, because I think restricting it to this degree is madness in my view. I really disagree with it profusely, because I just know it's an issue at the minute. It's going to be more of an issue when you have a significant number of dwellings backing onto it. I think it's a dereliction of duty if we don't address it in this way, you know, in a suitable way. So I would like some advice in terms of adjusting the condition in this regard, regardless of, you know, I would like to know from my own perspective, because at least then at the end of it all, I can say to potential residents that I did raise it in this committee structure and this is what I was told and it's on the minute. So I would like some advice on that from Kyle or whoever. Thanks.
Yeah, I think condition 7 does cover some of that. So obviously it requires the retention of the vegetation, but it does give justification to allow the removal. So it just continues that it shall be retained unless necessary to prevent danger to the public, in which case a full explanation along with a scheme for compensatory planting shall be submitted to and agreed in writing with the council prior to removal. So if there was an issue to arise, say for example, trees were dying or anything like that, the house owner can write to us. They can give us a compensatory scheme that we can consider, and that can be implemented. So there is that bit of flexibility within the condition as proposed.
Alderman Wilson, answer your question. Yep. There's no more lights on for questions. We'll move to members' debate. So, floor is yours, members. Any comments or questions? Okay. No lights on. So, members, I will need a decision on this. And Alderman Kennedy just sneaked in before Alderman Wilson. So, Alderman Kennedy, over to you.
It doesn't really matter. We're both singing off the same hymn sheet here. We're both welcome this development in the area, and I'm happy enough to propose we accept the officer's recommendation.
Well, Alderman Wilson, over to yourself.
Yeah, thanks. And I would second it, and just add that I would urge the developer just to do, as much as he can with that boundary to enable, residents to enjoy a decent level of amenity without all the associated issues that could arise with that. I would really make that a plea to them. Thank you.
Yeah, I think plenty of food for thought, and I think it will be considered. I think they're genuine enough. So we have a proposal by Alderman Kennedy to accept this application, which was seconded by Alderman Wilson. Consensus on the floor on relation to this application. All good. Yeah. Thank you very much, members. Thank you very much, Grania. Thank you very much, Stephen, for being with us this evening. Members, we move on to Appendix 7. Just on these ones, Appendix 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, we have Rosemary Hughes in here, in with us today, Tourism Heritage Projects and Investment Manager. I think it's more for clarification, Rosemary, if needed. So, we'll hand over to Appendix 7, which is application number LS08 2024 0889F, and I'm going to hand over to Liam McCrum, Senior Planning Officer, to present report and PowerPoint.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full permission for the erection of Northern Ireland Centennial Stone within an existing flower bed and public green on Main Street in Donaghcloney. The stone is to be polished granite, measuring 57.2 centimetres in height, 61.4 centimetres in length, and 6 centimetres in width. This application is being presented to the committee as the council is the applicant. Officers, having reviewed the proposal against the development plan and all relevant plan policies as set out in detail in the officer's report, are of the view that the proposal is acceptable in principle. The impact of the proposed Centennial Stone on the townscape, amenity and built heritage interests are fully assessed in the report. There are no third-party representations having been received by officers, and we are recommending approval. So if we just run through the PowerPoint. So you can see the site within the general area. Just the aerial view of the site with the site annotated in red. Just our site location plan. Just a blown up version of the site layout. And this is our full photo illustration of the proposal with the stone in situ. And the detailed drawings. And again. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam, for the presentation PowerPoint. Members, any question in relation to this application? No. Any comments, members? No. Do we have a proposal on the table, members? Proposal by Councillor Moot.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, happy to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation.
And I'll second that proposal. Members, are we all in agreement on the application? Yes, consensus in the room. Thank you very much. Members, move on to Appendix 8, LA 08 2024 0892F. And I'll hand over to Trudy Chapman this time.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates again to a centennial stone and has been submitted by the council. This application is to be located adjacent to the War Memorial on the main street in Rich Hill. The stone is to be placed at a 30-degree position to the southwest of the pedestrian island outside the War Memorial enclosure and is to be located between two trees. Like in Liam's presentation, the stone is the same size materials as that in Liam's application. The site is located within the settlement limit of Rich Hill and is within Rich Hill Conservation Area. Officers have considered the proposal and are content that it complies with all relevant policies, and consultation responses were favourable, as set out in the report circulated. Members are advised that no objections were received in relation to the proposal, and we therefore recommend that permission be granted. And I'll just take you through the slides. So we're in the centre of Rich Hill. Next slide, please. Our site location plan to the southern side of the War Memorial. Next slide, please. So this is an aerial photograph showing the situation at present. Next slide, please. This is taken from the Maynooth Road looking toward the main street and the War Memorial. Next slide, please. This is our proposed layout showing the positioning of the stone. Next slide, please. And this is our proposal. As you see, it's the same as the one that Liam's just presented. And the next slide, please. So the top one is a photograph of the current situation, and the bottom one is an artist impression as to what it would look like once it's installed. And that should be us. Thank you.
Thank you, Trudy. Members, any questions on that, relation to that? Any comments? And proposal on that? Alderman Wilson.
Happy to propose, thanks.
Alderman Kennedy. Members all in agreement? Census. Good to go. Members, moving on to Appendix 9, application LA 08 2024 0891F, and that is be taken by Liam McCrum.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the erection of a Northern Ireland centennial stone on grass and planted area to the south of number 3 Banbridge Road in Warrenstown. The stone as before is to be polished granite with the measurements the same. The application has been presented to committee as the council is the applicant. Officers have assessed the proposal against the development plan and all relevant planning policies as set out in detail in the report, and are of the view that the proposal is acceptable in principle. The impact of the proposed stone on the townscape, amenity and built heritage interest has been fully assessed and detailed in the report. No third-party representations have been received, and officers are recommending that permission be granted. We want to take a run through the PowerPoint. Again, our location within the general area of Warrenstown. Just the aerial view of the site as outlined in red. Our site location plan. Our proposed site layout. And you can see a photo illustration of the proposal. And again, just the detailed plans that have been submitted. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam. Members, any questions in relation to that? No lights on. Members, any comments? Members, any proposals in relation to this application? Councillor Moultrie.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, happy to propose that we accept the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Moultrie. Any second? Councillor Mulholland has seconded. Members, any concerns? Everyone consensus on the floor? Yes, nods heads. Thank you, members. Proposed by Councillor Moultrie, seconded by Alan Mulholland. And we'll move on to Appendix 10, application LA 08 2024 0894 F. And Trudy, back to you.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to the erection of a Northern Ireland Saltinian stone in the area of open space on Mill Street in Tandragee. It's before the committee as the application has been submitted by the council. This stone is to be placed at a 30-degree position in front of the existing clock pillar. The stone is to be polished granite, measuring 57.2 by 61.4 and 6 centimetres deep. The site is located within the settlement limit of Tandragee, and officers can consider the proposal against all planning policy and are content that it complies. All consultation responses were favourable as set out in the report as circulated. Members are advised that we receive no objections in relation to this proposal and therefore recommend the permission be granted. I'll take you through the slides. So we're located at the southern end of Tandragee. And that's our site location plan. These are aerial photographs. Now, this one I've divided them into. The top one is Spatial NI, but it's not as up to date. The bottom one is Google. You'll see that a couple of years ago, the council undertook to create an area of open space set out with paving, and the bottom one shows that in place. It's just not the clearest. Next slide, please. So these are photographs taken from Mill Street. The top one's looking north and the bottom one's looking south, and you'll see the clock pillar where the stones to be placed in front of. This is our proposed layout and our proposal and our artist impression. So the top one is the situation at present and the bottom one is our artist impression as to what it looked like once it's installed. Thank you.
Thank you, Trudy. Members, any questions in relation to that one? Any comments, members, debates? And we'll go for a proposal on that, members.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd just like to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation this year and approve it.
And seconded by Alderman Kennedy.
How about the second, Chair?
Members of proposal from Councillor Mulholland to accept officer's recommendation, seconded by Alderman Kennedy. Everyone consents on the floor? Yes, thank you very much, members. Application, our Appendix 11, application LA 08 2024 0977 F. And hand back over to Liam.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the erection of a Northern Ireland Centennial stone on an existing raised plinth beside a traditional lighting standard into Barton Street in Guildford. The stone is the same specifications as previously outlined and is to be polished granite. The application is before members tonight because the council is the applicant. Officers in this application, having assessed the proposal against the development plan and relevant planning policies as set out in detail in the report, are of the view the proposal is acceptable in principle. The impact of the proposed stone on townscape, amenity and built heritage interests has been fully assessed and detailed in the report. No third-party representations have been received and officers are recommending approval of the application. I want to take a look at our PowerPoint. Again, the location of the site as in Guildford Town Centre. The aerial view of the site outlined in red. Our site location plan. The proposed site layout plan. and the artist view with the, if you look closely, you can see the stone in situ at the bottom of the raised plinth. And again, just the specification detail of the stone. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam. Members, any questions in relation to this application? Members debate, any comments? Members, I will move to decision stage. Proposal.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Yes, once again, happy to propose we accept the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Moutry, and I'll second that proposal. Members, proposed by Councillor Moutry to accept the officer's recommendation, seconded by myself. Everyone's consensus on that? Check it, yeah. Perfect. Thank you very much, members. Members, we're just going to take a wee 2-3 minute adjournment. We'll get in touch with Councillor Donnelly to get Appendix 1 completed. We're having a bit of difficulties with internet connection, so just bear with us 1 wee second. We're back up and running. Yep. Members, we're going to move to Appendix 1, and we've got our internet difficulties sorted out. Appendix 1 is application LA 08 2021 0648F for Jeffrey Duggan. That's for approval. This is a returning application, and as I was unable to make the site visits previously, I'm just going to have to withdraw myself from this application. I'd like to invite Councillor Moutry to chair seat, as he has done it before in this for this application. So let's give him the mic. Huh? It is this application number, yes, isn't it? Yes, it is. It is.
Okay, members, so we've been moving on to application number LA 08 2021-0648, an application listed here for approval. I understand we've had difficulties reaching quorum and things like that before, so I know there's a number of you who weren't unable to make the site visit, so I will offer you the opportunity to make that known now. Let's start with the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as mentioned, I didn't attend the site visit, and as such, based off previous legal advice, wouldn't be taking part then in the decision on this application.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. I will bring in Councillor McGowan.
I won't be taking part in the meeting as I didn't attend the site visit either.
Thank you, Councillor McGowan. I will bring in Councillor Flaherty.
Thank you, Chair. As this is a application from long before my time in this committee, I'll not be taking part in this either like last time. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Flaherty. I will bring in Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't able to get to the site visit, so I'd have to excuse myself. But don't rush through the meeting. I'll not eat really fast. I'll leave something for you.
It's very thoughtful. Thank you. Moving on to Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, same for me. I didn't attend the site visit, so I'll excuse myself from this one. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. In the same vein, I was unable to attend the site meeting, so I'll not take part in this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Okay, so as I mentioned, application number LA 08 2021-0648. We will begin by a presentation of the report from Roisin Hamill.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for change of use from a dwelling to a 6-bedroom house of multiple occupancy at 27 Tandragee Road, Portadown. Members will recall this application has previously been presented to committee, most recently in June, where it was agreed that the application be deferred to allow officers to request more information from PSNI in relation to accidents that have taken place in this section of the Tandragee Road in the last 5 years. As set out in the report, PSNI has confirmed that in the last 5 years there have been 2 slight collisions, which resulted in 4 slight injuries along this stretch of the road in the last 5 years. Officers remain of the view that the proposal complies with the SPPS and all other relevant planning policies, and the application is being presented back to committee with an unchanged recommendation to approve. And I'm happy to go through the slides again with you. And this gives you an idea of where we are within the general area. The site is to the south of the Anna Bridge and it's outside the town centre of Portadown. It's just an aerial view of our site. You can just about make the site outlined in red. And this was the site location map submitted with the application, and again the application site outlined in red. So these are the existing elevations and plans, and you'll recall there are no external alterations to the building proposed. And these are the proposed floor plans. Internally, it's going from a 5-bedroom property to a 6-bedroom property. So the existing dining room to the front is being converted to a bedroom. So this is just a photograph of the site taken from the Tandragee Road. And another photograph of the site taken further up the Tandragee Road. And just another photograph of the site with the arrow donating the property. So this is Anna Business Centre, which lies just to the north of the application site. And this is a photograph of the parking area to the rear of the property. You'll recall, obviously, we visited on the day of our site visit. And this is a view to Lower Thomas Street, which was one of the areas identified that had potential parking. And again, this was the parking analysis that was submitted with the application, identifying certain areas that were available for parking within walking distance of the site. That concludes the presentation. Thank you, members.
Thank you for that, Roisin. Members, I will begin by offering the floor to questions, if anyone would like to take that opportunity. Yes, I'll bring in Councillor O'Dowd.
Thank you, Roisin. There was a number of objections to this, but I can see by going down the report, yous have went through them all and have answered every one of the objections. And thought if there was a solution, you've got the solution. I just think that it's a great report and well done out. Thank you.
Okay, members, I'll just put that to you again. Any further questions for Roisin at this time? No. Okay, moving on to debate stage. Any comments from the floor? Okay, well, I just want to actually probably thank Roisin. This has been a long, drawn out process. I know we've had issues obviously with reaching quorum throughout it. It's difficult when you only have 4 members. It's dragged on probably longer than we would have hoped. I suppose when it comes to an application like this, and certainly as a Portadown councillor who knows the area, who's very familiar with the area, you know, I have just wanted to do really my due diligence in terms of looking at, you know, road accident history, the parking survey, because I know that Tandragee Road is an area whereby congestion is a real problem, road safety is a real problem, and obviously we now have been furnished by that detail from both the police and from road service, and as members we have to be led by that. I know in the last 5 years, it states here from both the police and road service that accident history is only quantified by, I think, two incidents and 4 slight injuries. And obviously, the recommendation based on that is that we do go ahead with that. So as members, we do have to be led by that. But it's one of those sticky situations, I think, whereby quite often you will get road traffic collisions and they're not made up as part of this evidence. I know 2 months ago, less than 2 months ago, there was a collision at Annandale Place, the junction there going out onto the Tandragee Road, but that was dealt with privately, and it does go to show that, you know, this is a busy road. It's one of the most problematic roads in all of Portadown, but as members, we do have to be led by the evidence that is before us. So yes, any further comments from members? Okay, we can move on to a decision then. Do we have any proposals from the floor? We'll bring in Councillor O'Dowd.
Yes, Chair, thank you. I'm happy to propose this.
Thank you, Councillor O'Dowd. So we have a proposal from Councillor O'Dowd. Do we have anyone to second that? Okay, getting a bit of a technical glitch here on the screen, so I'm maybe just having trouble seeing Councillor Donnelly, but yes, I'd be happy to second that proposal made by Councillor O'Dowd. Is that all agreed, members? Okay. Okay, thank you, members, and we will at this moment, we'll pass back to the chair. It's gone. Okay. Yeah. Okay, at this moment, I'll just welcome the chair back to the floor, Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, members, I have no other business. Want to thank all the planners for their work, to member services, to our legal advice as well today. Wish everyone safe journey home, and we'll see you next month at the December meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.